Hey guys, it's Jazz the 40 ounce connoisseur
Is Cat Daddy.
and we are Girl That's Scary back with another excellent and exciting interview for our Black History Month extravaganza. You have things going on all month, live events at the Alamo Draft House, everything. So check out our calendar. But this time we are delighted and honored, okay, to speak to Mr. Rodney Barnes, who has his hands in everything, wears many hats, producer, writer, the comic book. We're going to get into these comic books, okay? But first and foremost, I want everyone to check out Killadelphia. I want everyone to watch the Boondocks if you have not. I just can't believe if you have not watched the Boondocks. But I guess we'll
Shame.
start with, yes, I guess we want to, pick your brain on a few like icebreaker horror questions before
Okay.
we get into the interview questions. So, I'm sure because you talked about being like a fan of horror, like that always has a backhand. I would like to know, out of the Cenobites, which one is your favorite? Which one draws you in the most?
Give me a little bit more. Give me a little bit more of the question so that I can give you the best answer.
Okay. If you were to ride off into the sunset, go on a
Okay.
Bonnie and Clyde mission with
All
one
right.
of the Cenobites,
What are
which
the
Cenobite
Cenobites? You
would you?
mean which movie or which?
Oh, from Hellraiser. So the Cenobites,
Oh,
there's the
okay.
Chatterer. Yeah, there's the Hell Priest, the Pinhead.
Pinhead.
Um,
It would be Pinhead.
okay,
It'd be
excellent,
Pinhead.
excellent. Love to hear it. Okay, you want to jump
That's
in?
who scared me the most. I think it's been so long since seen that movie. But yeah,
It's never too late to revisit it. Don't.
that's
The
very
new
true.
one is really good. The ones in the
Really,
middle, I don't know.
really, I
Yeah.
haven't had an
Yeah.
opportunity to watch any of the new stuff. I didn't even watch the new Exorcist movie. But yeah,
You and I are the same on that one. That's okay.
Okay.
It's all right. So I know, like we said, you had your hands in everything, and we know
Yep.
that horror is really the lane that you truly, really wanted to be in. Even though you started out at comedy, what's your favorite subgenre right now? What is really what's on Mr. Barnes' watch list right now?
watch list. There ain't a whole lot on my watch list. I'm so busy doing a whole bunch of everything. I don't get an opportunity to watch damn near anything. I tell you what I do, and it's actually a boring thing for anybody who's around me. And living in LA is a benefit in this way. You can see old horror movies in the theater. So I go to old movies like they're new movies. Maybe because I'm old. But I saw Dawn of the Dead not too long ago, The Changeling, just Suspiria, just movies that are Ganja and Hess. Um, yeah, I see those movies like they're new. And I probably should be watching more of the newer stuff, but I'm still sort of enamored with the stuff that made me want to do this in the first place.
No, that's really a lot. We're also one of those like I'm not always jumping into the new things. I personally have a thing for 70s horror.
Yeah, me
That
too.
is my bag.
We share that.
So
70s is my era. Exorcist, Amityville Horror, those movies. I'm right in there with you. They did practical effects. I like practical effects better than the CGI stuff. You know, the early John Carpenter and Wes Craven and George Romero and Cronenberg. That kind of stuff is me.
All right. We love to hear it. We are definitely fans of practical effects here. If you were, because of course you're thinking about older films since we haven't dove into many of the new films. If you were to make maybe a 3 movie cassette or three
Uh-oh.
movie like DVD pack of horror, what 3 movies would you put on there? 3 movies that say, yeah, Rodney Barnes picked this.
I just made a post on Instagram about my 5 favorite religious themed horror films, and I think The Serpent and the Rainbow, The Exorcist, and The Thing, because it covers The Thing for monster movies, being a monster movie. The Exorcist because it is religious themed, and I almost see it as damn near a perfect movie. And The Serpent and the Rainbow, I thought, even though there's the math of it is a little bit off, but the way they dealt with voodoo, I thought was a little bit more respectful and authentic than a lot of times how voodoo is dealt with.
Yes. Okay. I definitely understand that. And just piggybacking on that question, do you lean into like religious horror at all? Like, is that something that intrigues, like sparks interest in particular?
Not really, because it feels like a lot of well, it's a dual-edged sword. If you look at movies like The Omen, or because you had a lot of the devil movies in the '70s as well, it feels like the new ones feel like rip-offs of the old ones. I haven't really seen lately a religious-themed horror movie that moved me. I mean, I've still got to go back to the '70s, '80s, and maybe early '90s to look at the religious themed ones that sparked my interest. Just like today, I don't know if you would consider like The Conjuring or those movies to have like any religious theme. I know they touch on stuff, but they still don't hit me like the old stuff does.
Yeah.
It's like the music you came up on. Yes, you're going to get to an age, whatever music y'all like right now, 20 years from now, you're going to say y'all missed this thing, and you're going to be listening to that in your car. You won't be listening to the new stuff.
I'm already there.
See, there you go. And that's how I am with movies. That's how I am with movies and TV shows. Like, I will DVR stuff that I saw when I was a kid, and, more so than stuff I get excited about now.
Oh, DVR brings up memories. Go ahead, Kat.
Okay, I have one question before we shift gears a little bit, and then we're going to play a little fun game of Would You Rather. No bad stuff, all safe stuff.
Phew.
Safe stuff. So I know that you are from what most people like to call the DMV area. You're from Annapolis. Mm-hmm. I'm a Washingtonian. Jazz is from Richmond. And I know that you also have a lot of, even though history isn't necessarily your bag, but you have a lot of historical horror in Killadelphia. Mm-hmm. Have you ever thought about maybe like in future things, future project, future works, maybe exploring the DC, Maryland, Virginia area and yeah.
I've got a project, Nita Hall's Nightmare Blog, which is a spinoff from Killadelphia, and I deal with Baltimore. It's set in Baltimore the same way Killadelphia is set in Philadelphia. So I deal with a lot of Baltimore, Annapolis, that lore, because Annapolis was a slave port. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of history connected to not just the slavery aspect, but how the African American experience was sort of integrated into Annapolis, which was the capital of, first 13 colonies and all of that stuff. So, yeah, I dig history. I like to use history not so much like medicine, but a part of the narrative. So you're getting both things at the same time. You're not necessarily getting this happened here and this happened there. I try to use the history to sort of personalize it for the characters that are in it. So that's where I came from. That's what I'm trying to do.
Okay. I love Annapolis. Sorry, I'm usually. It's a very beautiful place. It's a very interesting place, but it's a very beautiful place, and it's always the seafood for me.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, mm-hmm. Of course. You can't. A crab cake ain't a crab cake if you didn't get it from Baltimore or Annapolis. They trying real hard, but it's not the real thing.
They do, I'm just we can do that another day, but
yeah.
The DC choked out.
I'm living through y'all vicariously because I can't have shellfish. I'm just a single tear.
Oh, that's
it's
too
okay.
Bad. Oh,
that's all right. But since we're switching gears and talking on the topic of Killadelphia, I do want to talk about how you started with, screenplays first and then moved into comics because that was always a love of yours. I was listening to a podcast, I think it's Bearded Comic Podcast. We were talking about how your mom was doing lesson plans at the library, and that's how you got into the comic books. I, too, am a teacher. I know how the lesson plans go. Okay. Yeah, so one, did you have any favorite comic books as a kid? And that's going to segue into... what is like your process? What was your process from switching over to like screenplay and transitioning into writing for a comic?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I loved the artist Neil Adams. Those covers, he did a lot of covers for DC Comics, and even if the interior art wasn't the same, if he didn't do the interior art, I loved those covers, and I sort of fell in love with that. And then ultimately, Swamp Thing, the horror comics, House of Mystery, those books grabbed me. And Batman, the way Neil drew Batman made him sort of darker in a way that I think went to the Frank Miller Dark Knight and, some of the other great creators who've been a part of Batman's legacy. What was the second question? My process.
Mm-hmm.
my process of moving from screenplay to comics was kind of difficult. When I got Falcon was my first comic book assignment that I gotten, and I kind of approached it like I did television because I didn't have a reference point to what comic book writing was. And I remember my editor coming back to me and asked him what he thought of the script. He said, it's kind of ponderous. That's not a good word a writer wants to hear. And I had no idea what he was talking about until I got the art back with the letters. And it was so many words, you almost had to move the words out of the way to see the art. And over the course of time, I had to develop a way to say what I wanted to say, but with less words. And I also had to make a better relationship with words to art and allow the art to complement the words or vice versa. But in the beginning, I think I was writing almost damn near writing a book, like writing prose. And it took a while. It took like 3 or 4 books. I think I did Lando, the Star Wars book, Lando Double or Nothing, Quincredible, into Killadelphia before I actually started to feel really comfortable with what my voice would be in comics.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, that's super interesting. Just thinking about the relationships and how things transition between the different art forms, because comic books are like short form, and looking at the illustrations in Killadelphia, sometimes it's just like eyes, and you can see the emotion, or it's the eyes in a word, and you can kind of feel it. Versus, where someone would take a paragraph in a book to explain and talk about the details because you don't have that art to accompany it.
Yeah. Yep. Shout out to Jason Shawn Alexander. He's a great artist. He's able to convey emotion incredibly.
I know you got to work on Blade as one of your first projects.
It was my first project in LA.
Yes.
My first job.
Okay. First of all, I'm inspired because yes, and also like not even just that. Being at home and watching that movie and like being like, yes, this is a thing that seems like it's exciting, it's amazing. I'm into vampires. Vampires are the thing. What was some of your most exciting moments about being on that set? What was the thing that made you go, this is the time?
Well, at the time it was I was living in LA for the first time. I knew nothing about LA. I was living in my car. And so I was kind of desperate. I needed a job anyway. And a good friend gave it to me and worked on another movie with me. And as far as the comic book stuff aspect of it, watching Wesley warm up as Blade with the sword and the outfit on, and he would work out with the stunt guys. And they would do it. They practiced like they shot it. So a lot of the stuff that you saw on film, I got an opportunity to see just standing there watching it in real time. That was cool. One of my jobs, when they did the Blood Club, I had to stand at the door and make sure none of the extras ran out when the blood came from the ceiling because they needed them in the shot. And I'd never had that job before, but I figured it out. And then when we were in downtown LA, I had to make sure the homeless people didn't wander into the shot. But these were the types of jobs that I had on Blade. And I had no idea how to do it. I hadn't done any of that kind of stuff before, and I didn't know LA. But watching Steve Norrington, he directed the movie. He was fantastic in just being able to move things around and being able to see the sets up close and all of that kind of stuff. And it's just, the whole experience was great.
Wow, I'm inspired. This is the blood scene. That's so iconic.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people who are navigating writing, who are starting to write comics or starting to write screenplays? What advice would you give people who are just starting out on their dreams?
I always say the most valuable commodity that you have as a writer is your voice. That's the thing that separates each of us as writers. I think Hollywood buys voices actually more than it buys writers per se. It's like you can get a lot of books that tell you how to interior, exterior structure, how things work. And that's important. But I think the next step, which I don't know if anybody can actually teach you, is how to develop your voice and the thing that separates you. If you watch a Jordan Peele movie that Jordan wrote, you can tell it's different than any other person. He did it. There's a third act that you're going to have to really think, and put some attention to. And I think in order to do that, you have to have a degree of self-awareness that you have to build, and you really have to be passionate about the thing. The thing that your voice is sort of speaking to. Like, how am I going to go about, what is horror to me? You know, I try to make Killadelphia as much me as it is trying to be scary. So there's going to be a little bit of humor. There's going to be a little bit of heart. I try to put some meaning in there. And the horror has to connect to the narrative in a way, like I'm not just doing a jump scare to shock you. I'm trying to do something that resonates from an emotional place. And I've tried to do that in all the other horror books that I've written and all the other things I've been connected to. I do a podcast on Runful where I read scary stories. And if you listen to them, you sort of see towards the end the Killadelphia thing. Like the last 3 pages of Killadelphia, I'm trying to connect with the reader in an emotional way. And I try to do that with the podcast too, in a way that this is what the purpose of this journey, whatever, however long the page count was, that as I wrap it up, I want you to understand why you were here, what you saw beyond the story that was just being told. That hopefully it have resonated with you on an emotional level as much as it did on an entertaining horror spooky level. And I think I learned that from a lot of that 70s stuff that we were talking about in Stephen King and Richard Matheson, and just a lot of my heroes told stories in a way that they just resonated beyond just the horror and the scary stuff. I was never a big, like, you know, you had those torture like films that you had a period where it was like, okay, what can we do to a human being? How badly can we mangle a human being movies? I was never a big fan of those. I was more a fan of how can we create a surrealist experience that walks with life, that goes off into another direction. And, you know, but you got me. I'm on a ride, and then you're going to bring me back, hopefully safely. I try to create that with the books and the stuff that I do.
Okay, I have one last question before we transition.
I like the way you whisper it. I like the way you're so respectful. You got one more question. Go ahead.
Thank you. You know, I like to be gentle with people with my words.
I appreciate it.
You have worn many hats in your career. You're still doing all the things. What has been one or some of your most memorable moments thus far? You're still living life.
Yeah, I am. I'm still here. I think I was Michael Clark Duncan's stand-in on the movie The Green Mile. And that was because I really wanted to meet Stephen King. It's a long story that goes with that and how I got there. And being able to experience the making of that movie up close and every single day, and the amount of craftsmanship that they put into it, and the amount of detail and attention, and then ultimately getting to meet Stephen King and all of that sort of was a pivot moment to me of what it's going to take commitment-wise to be successful in this. And, you know, success means a lot of things to a lot of people. It doesn't mean you're going to be super-duper successful. It doesn't mean you're going to make a lot of money or you're going to be incredibly famous. To me, I just wanted to be able to work on a regular basis. I wanted to be able to stay in the space and just do meaningful work consistently until I decided that I didn't want to do it anymore. And, you know, that movie sort of spoke to the level of commitment that you had to get to, like, to be that great. You know, you're talking about Tom Hanks, Frank Darabont, Stephen King, late great Michael Clark Duncan. You're talking about people who were at the top of their fields, and now me, I'm just a guy off the street who's a fan of Stephen King. That bridge, being able to see that a bridge needed to be formed from where I was to where ultimately I wanted to be, was invaluable. So I would chalk that up as one of those moments that stands out amongst many others.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So before we close out, the last thing we're going to do is just a small game of Would You Rather. We're going to do it.
Okay.
We're going to ask you one. Just one.
All right.
All right. Would you rather live out the rest of your days as a vampire or as the Invisible Man?
Vampire. I'd say that because Invisible Man, you're not really, you got to be sneaky. You know, you kind of you're not really connecting with other people. You're not really a part of the experience of being a human being. Vampire. I always dug vampires because over time you get perspective. Yeah, you got to eat people from time to time. That's unfortunate. But in the midst of that, if you think about it, I'm a real big fan of Interview with the Vampire, the AMC series. And I like the way they deal with history, with Louis and Lestat. And not so much just their relationship, but the way their relationship is so connected to, 100 years ago or however long it is. And so I think that experience of being able to look through time, if I had 200-300 years to be able to build a relationship with life, that would be kind of cool.
Super cool. Oh, okay. Okay, so we're
Vampire
going to
game.
respect, yes. Kat would do the same thing. As soon as you said vampire, I was like, Kat too. Kat would also be a vampire.
Always vampire too.
I don't know. I'm scared. But we're going to close it out soon because we do not want to wait. We know you're a busy man. We know you got a lot of hats on. We're going to send you out here.
Yes, I do.
We
I got
definitely
kids to
are.
feed. I got kids to feed.
Thank you so much for chatting with us. Oh my
You're
God,
very
this was an
welcome.
honor. Are there any projects you want to tell anybody about? All the listeners to check out.
Let me see. Well, Killadelphia runs every month from Image Comics. I got a bunch of new books from some of the characters that I talked about today that haven't been announced yet. The podcast Run Fool that you can find on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Other than that, just the regular stuff that I'm pushing up a hill. I got a couple miniseries at HBO in development and a couple movies in development, and everything else is development. So there you go.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. Thank you.
Yes. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Keep tuning in and check our calendar. And until next time, guys, bye.